We may not know what 2025 has in store for us yet, but I can say with confidence that it is already shaping up to be a very exciting year for fiction. Don't believe me? Check out these 21 amazing looking books coming out in 2025. I am already very hyped for these, and I think you should be too. I'm not going to waste any time here. I'm jumping straight into my most anticipated book of this entire year. I don't have a review copy of it yet, but I really hope I can get my hands on one. It is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang has swiftly become my favorite author in the entire world, and here's the synopsis of her brand new novel. Catabasis, noun, ancient Greek, the story of a hero's descent into the underworld. Two academic rivals from Cambridge must travel to hell to rescue the soul of their advisor. Getting there was easy. Surviving it and each other is another thing entirely. 2025's most unexpected love story is going to be hell in the new novel by Sunday Times blah 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 blah. R.F. Kuang. I am so excited for this. A Greek mythology inspired dark academia romantic fantasy thing. Only R.F. Kuang could pull this off in the way that I know she will. Now let's jump into a book that's coming out pretty soon. This book will launch in February and it's from another one of my favorite authors ever, Adrian Tchaikovsky. This book is called Shroud. This is my review copy and I am so excited for this. I'm going to be saying that a lot, so I don't know, just put up with it. What lurks in the dark? A commercial expedition to a distant star system uncovers a moon that is pitch black, but alive with radioactivity and unknown life forms. Its high gravity, high pressure, zero oxygen environment is deadly to human life, but ripe for exploration. They named it Shroud. Under no circumstances can a human survive Shroud's inhospitable surface, but a catastrophic accident forces Juna Kielander and Meister Etienne to make a landing in a barely adequate escape vehicle. Alone and fighting to survive, the two women embark on a grueling journey across land, sea, and air in search of salvation. As they travel, Juna and Mai begin to understand Shroud's extraordinary alien species. It also begins to understand them. Adrian Tchaikovsky doesn't disappoint. He doesn't. Ever. He's an incredible writer and I am thrilled to have a copy of this ready to go. My absolute favorite Japanese author is Sayaka Murata, and she also has a new novel coming out this year in English. The novel is called Vanishing Wild and it's being translated by Ginny Tapley Takimori. Normality is the creepiest madness there is. In our near future world, children are solely conceived by artificial insemination. Even sex between married couples is viewed as taboo. Amane's family is irregular. Her parents copulated to create her and hope that she too will find love and have a child with the person she marries. But Amane falls in line with society's way of thinking and wants a regular, clean marriage. Then she hears of a place that is the subject of a social experiment. Everyone in Paradise Eden will act as one big family. Could this be the perfect third way? Now, if you've read Sayaka Murata's short story collection Life Ceremony, you might recognize a phrase from that synopsis, clean marriage, because in that book is a short story called A Clean Marriage. Now, also in that book is a short story that I'm pretty confident was the original version of her novel Earthlings, and so I wonder if the short story A Clean Marriage is also where this novel began. Maybe Sayaka Murata is the kind of person who writes short stories and eventually expands upon them into full novels. It kind of seems to be the case. But also she's an author who is fascinated by family dynamics and traditions and sexual relationships, and it seems like she's done it again. Once again, I am very excited. A brand new epic fantasy novel that I am so excited to read. I need to find another word. Is A Song of Legends Lost. This is by M.H. Ayinde, an author I've never come across before. It might be a debut, but when Orbit sent me this review copy a few weeks ago, a review copy which, by the way, even has sprayed edges, it came with a very enthusiastic letter from the editor describing how they felt when they received this book and they knew it was something very special. The letter itself was enough to get me hyped for this. A song of rebellion, a song of war, or a song of legends lost. In the Kingdom of Nine Lands, only warriors of noble blood can summon their ancestors to fight with them in battle. But when Temmie, a commoner from the slums, accidentally invokes a powerful spirit, she finds it could hold the key to ending a centuries-long war. But as secrets long buried come to light, Temmie will learn that not everything that can be invoked is an ancestor, and that some of the spirits that can be drawn from the ancestral realm are more dangerous than anyone can imagine. Oh, this sounds great. Oh, this sounds really, really great. Even though Sayaka Murata and Adrian Tchaikovsky are two of my favorite authors in the entire world, alongside R.F. Kuang's Catabasis, this is probably my most hyped book of the whole year. I've read this blurb like 5 times and I am shaking with anticipation to get to this thing. It comes out in April in the UK, by the way. In 2024, legendary Korean author Han Kang made history by being the first Korean author to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. And in 2025, we're getting a brand new novel in translation from her. The novel is called We Do Not Part. It is co-translated by Yi Ye-won and Paige Anaya Morris. And I think this is the first time we've had a Han Kang novel not translated by Deborah Smith. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Anyway, this is amazing news. Han Kang's novels, The Vegetarian, Human Acts, and The White Book are 3 of my favorite Korean novels ever. And while I didn't love her book Greek Lessons, it still saw enormous success, and rightly so. She deserves all the love and success in the world. As for We Do Not Part, here's your synopsis. Beginning one morning in December, We Do Not Part traces the path of a young woman, Kyung-ha, as she travels from the city of Seoul into the forests of Jeju Island, to the home of her old friend In-son. Hospitalized following an accident, In-son has begged Kyung-ha to hasten there to feed her beloved pet bird, who will otherwise die. Kyung-ha takes the first plane to Jeju, but a snowstorm hits the island the moment she arrives, plunging her into a world of white. Beset by icy winds and snow squalls, she wonders if she'll arrive in time to save the bird, or even survive the terrible cold which envelops her with every step. As night falls, she struggles her way to In-son's house, unaware as yet of the descent into darkness which awaits her. There, the long-buried story of In-son's family surges into light, in dreams and memories passed from mother to daughter, and in a painstakingly assembled archive documenting a terrible massacre on the island 70 years before. We Do Not Part is a hymn to friendship, a eulogy to the imagination, and above all, an indictment against forgetting. Jesus, that sounds good. Coming in February, we have the new novel by my friend Heather Parry, Carrie and Crow. There are some facts about the world which only your mother can teach you. So, into the attic she has gone, climbing the stairs towards her promised freedom, and she would stay there until she has learned the lessons that would prepare her for the real world, the lessons that only a mother could teach. Marguerite Perigord has been confined for the sake of her well-being. That's what her mother had said. Heather's debut novel, Orpheus Builds a Girl, is one of my favorite Gothic novels in the entire world ever, an absolute triumph that did something totally fresh and new for the Gothic genre, and I am very, very confident that Carrie and Crow will continue that legacy. I'm sure Heather's written something really, really special and important here. We've also got the second novel from the author of Bellies, Nicola Dinnan, which was such a wonderful work of transgender fiction. Her new novel is called Disappoint Me, and here's the blurb. Max is 30, a published poet and grossly overpaid legal counsel for a tech company. She's living her best life. Or is she? The debris of years of dysphoria and failed relationships rattle around in her head. When she tumbles down the stairs at a New Year's Eve party and wakes up in the hospital alone, she decides to make some changes. First things first, a stab at good old-fashioned heteronormativity. Enter Vincent, a corporate lawyer and hobby baker. His trad friendship group may as well speak a different language to Max, and his Chinese parents never pictured their son dating a trans woman. It's uncertain terrain, but Vincent cares for Max in a way she'd long given up on as a foolish fantasy. Yet Vincent is carrying his own baggage, On his gap year in Thailand a decade prior, he vies for the attention of a gorgeous traveller, Alex, with a secret of her own. Is Vincent really the new face of the enlightened man? Or will the ghosts of his past sabotage his and Max's happiness? An American horror novel that's coming really soon in January is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Sit, listen. I need you to understand what they did to us when we were girls. That's the important thing you have to remember. We were children. They called us fast girls, wayward girls, loose girls. They said the devil had tempted us and we had sinned. But for girls like us, down there at the home, the devil turned out to be our only friend. And even today, I don't regret a thing the devil made us do. Oh. Grady Hendrix's latest novel at the point of recording, How to Sell a Haunted House, is my absolute favorite of his. And so I'm kind of hoping he's on this constant upward trajectory and it's only going to get better from here, which means this should be an absolute banger. Given how much I love witches and witchcraft and horror fiction, I think we've got a winner here. Another very exciting transgender book that we've got in 2025 is Stag Dance by Tori Peters, author of Detransition Baby. This, however, is not a novel, it is a quartet of stories. Deep in the forest, a group of restless lumberjacks working an illegal logging outfit plan a winter dance that some will volunteer to attend as women. The broadest, strongest axeman finds himself caught in a rivalry with a petty young jack that culminates in jealousy, betrayal, and an astonishing spectacle of transition. Meanwhile, in other times and places, the gender apocalypse is brought about by an unstable ex-girlfriend. An illicit boarding school romance surfaces intrigue and cruelty, and a Las Vegas party weekend turns dark when a young crossdresser must choose between a thrilling mystery man or a veteran trans woman offering unglamorous sisterhood. Awesome. A very strange and mysterious Japanese book that is coming out days after this video does is Strange Pictures by Uketsu. Strange Pictures is something of a phenomenon in Japan, and here's what we know. Uketsu only ever appears online, wearing a mask and speaking through a voice changer. He has more than 1.5 million followers. His innovative sketch mysteries challenge readers to discover the hidden clues in a series of sinister drawings. They have sold nearly 3 million copies in Japan since 2021. Translation rights have been sold in 27 languages and counting, and Uketsu's true name and identity remain unknown. That's all we get. That's it. I know nothing else about what's inside this book. Pushkin sent it to me a little while ago and they were vibrating with excitement over this thing, so I really think we have something very unique and special here, and it's coming out in a few days. One of my absolute favorite fantasy authors in the entire world is the Lord of Grimdark Fantasy himself, Joe Abercrombie. I recently reread The Blade itself and I'm gonna work back through the first lore very soon. And in 2025, we have a brand new novel from him called The Devils. Now, The Devils is a fantasy novel, but it's also a work of dark historical fiction. Historical fantasy, I guess. Europe stares into the abyss. Plague and famine stalk the land, monsters lurk in every shadow, and greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions. Only one thing is certain: the elves will come again, and they will eat everyone. Sometimes only the darkest paths lead toward the light, paths on which the righteous will not dare to tread. And so, buried beneath the sacred splendor of the celestial palace is the secret chapel of the holy expediency. For its congregation of convicted monsters, there are no sins that have not been committed, no lines that will not be crossed, and no mission that cannot be turned into a disastrous bloodbath. Now the hapless Brother Diaz must somehow bind the worst of the worst to a higher cause, to put a thief on the throne of Troy and unite the sundered church against the coming apocalypse. When you're headed through hell, you need the devils on your side. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, no, this is, yeah. This is gonna be good. Another exciting Japanese novel coming in 2025 is this, May You Have Delicious Meals by Junko Takase. This book won the Akutagawa Prize. I just found a sticker inside my copy, and I just had to dig around to find who the translator is. Thank you, Penguin. Maybe put the translator on the cover, thank you very much. Turns out the translator is a friend of mine, Morgan Giles. Morgan does incredible work. The power dynamics of the office are never more obvious than when it comes to food. Mandatory lunches with the boss, the colleague who tries to curry favor with home-baked goods, discovering the discharged remnants of someone else's late-night binge. In their Saitama office, Ashikawa is the kind of woman Nitani knows he will likely marry. Sweet, obliging, and determined to wean him off his addiction to instant noodles. But he finds himself increasingly unable to respect her, or the sugary treats she shares around the workplace, winning their colleagues' affection with baking rather than hard work. Oshio is bolder and uninhibited. She is Nitani's drinking buddy. In the oppressive office atmosphere, the pair grows closer, both outsiders struggling with the rigid status quo. Driven to behave in increasingly absurd ways by the workplace rules that govern their lives, they must navigate the tensions of modern life between leisure and hard work, indulgence and restraint, the promise of delicious food and the reality of a lonely pot noodle. Now, I'm not going to say much about this next one because it's a direct sequel, but it's a sequel to one of my favorite reads of 2024, Fae Bound by Sara El Arifi. I was ready to give up on the romantasy genre until I read this book. Fae Bound is easily my favorite romantic fantasy that I've read so far, and in 2025 we're getting a direct sequel, Cursebound. Fans of good science fiction are probably very, very aware of how incredible this book is. This Is How You Lose the Time War was co-written by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar. And in 2025, we are getting a brand new novel by Amal El-Mohtar. The novel is called The River Has Roots, and this is the blurb. Follow the river Liss to the small town of Thistleford on the edge of Faerie, and meet two sisters who cannot be separated even in death. In the small town of Thistleford on the edge of Faerie dwells the mysterious Hawthorne family. There they tend and harvest the enchanted willows and honour an ancient compact to sing to them in thanks for their magic, none more devotedly than the family's latest daughters, Esther and Isabel, that's my partner, who cherish each other as much as they cherish the ancient trees. But when Esther rejects a forceful suitor in favour of a lover from the land of Faerie, not only the sisters' bond, but also their lives will be at risk. This is Amal El-Mohtar's debut novel, outside of the co-writing she did with Max Gladstone on This Is How You Lose the Time War. So I am very stoked for this. At Dark, I Become Loathsome is the brand new novel by one of my favourite horror authors, Eric LaRocca. Apologies for the fact that this review copy is pretty ugly. Obviously the finished cover is a lot prettier than this. If you're reading this, you've likely thought that the world would be a better place without you. A single line of text glowing in the darkness of the internet, written by Ashley Luton, who has often thought that, and worse, in the years since his wife died and his young son disappeared. But the piece of the grave is not for Ashley, it's for those who can help. Ashley Luton has constructed a peculiar ritual for those whose desire to die is at war with their yearning to live a better life. Struggling to overcome his never-ending grief, one night Ashley connects with Jinx, who spins a tale both revolting and fascinating. This begins a relationship that traps the men in a tightening spiral of painful revelations, where long-hidden secrets are dragged, kicking and screaming, into the light. Only through pain can we find healing. Only through death can we find life. My God. And continuing with the horror trend, we have a brand new novel by Stephen Graham Jones, The Buffalo Hunter, a chilling historical horror set in the American West in 1912, following a Lutheran priest who transcribes the life of a vampire who haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation looking for justice. Etsy Bocan is an academic who needs to get published, so when a journal written in 1912 by Arthur Bocan, a Lutheran pastor, and her grandfather is discovered within a wall during renovations, she sees her chance. She she can uncover the lost secrets of her family and get tenure. As she researches, she comes to learn of her grandfather and a Blackfeet called Goodstab, who came to Arthur to share the story of his extraordinary life. She discovers the journals detail a slow massacre, a chain of events charting the history of Montana State as it formed, a cycle of violence that leads all the way back to 217 Blackfeet murdered in the snow, a blood-soaked and unflinching saga of the violence of colonial America, a revenge story like no other, and the chilling reinvention of vampire lore from the master of horror. My goodness, that sounds incredible. A novel that I think a lot of people are going to be very, very excited for is The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica. I know that's not what it says here, but I promise that's what the book is. Agustina Bazterrica lit the world on fire with her novel Tender is the Flesh. I remember reading and reviewing that book years ago, and it didn't receive much attention at the time, and it's only gotten bigger since. In the last year or so, people have gone insane for that book, and so the hype for this is going to be pretty intense. Unfortunately, I've just looked through this, and there's no blurb. How exciting. In 2025, we're also getting a brand new novel from one of the great writers and poets of our generation, Ocean Vuong. The novel is called The Emperor of Gladness. One late summer evening in the post-industrial town of East Gladness, Connecticut, 19-year-old Hai stands on the edge of a bridge in pelting rain, ready to jump, when he hears someone shout across the river. The voice belongs to Grazina, an elderly widow succumbing to dementia, who convinces him to take another path. Bereft and out of options, he quickly becomes her caretaker. Over the course of the year, the unlikely pair develop a life-altering bond, one built on empathy, spiritual reckoning, and heartbreak, with the power to alter Hai's relationship to himself, his family, and a community at the brink. Following the cycles of history, memory, and time, The Emperor of Gladness shows the profound ways in which love, labor, and loneliness form the bedrock of American life. At its heart is a brave epic about what it means to exist on the fringes of society and to reckon with the wounds that haunt our collective soul. This will be a masterpiece. Ocean Vuong only knows how to write masterpieces, whether we're talking about prose or poetry. Everything he does is phenomenal. Another very exciting transgender novel coming out in 2025 is ASL by John Thornton. John Thornton wrote Summer Fun, which came out like 2 or 3 years ago at this point and was such a delightful, unique and beautiful thing. And now we've got ASL. 1998. Lilith, Sash, and Abraxa are teenagers, scattered across the country but joined by the internet. They are making Saga of the Sorceress, a video game that will change everything, if only for the 3 of them. 18 years later, Saga of the Sorceress still exists, only on the scattered drives of its creators. Lilith works as a lone underwriter at a rinky-dink bank in Manhattan, a trans woman in a very cis world. Sash is in Brooklyn, working as a part-time webcam dominatrix. Neither knows that the other is in New York, or that Abraxa is just across the Hudson River, sleeping on the floor of a friend's Jersey City home after a disaster at sea. They have never met in person and have been out of touch for years, but none have forgotten the sorceress or her quest, still far from finished. As a trans person feeling a lot of nostalgia for the early days of the internet, I'm very excited for this. In 2025, we're also getting a brand new novel by V.E. Schwab. Now, I have to be honest, the only V.E. Schwab novel I've really adored was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Everything else that she's written that I've read, I haven't really connected with, but Addie LaRue is a special novel, and I'm really hoping that this will live up to it, maybe even surpass it. The novel is called Bury Our Bones in Midnight Soil, and it's a queer fantasy romance. Santo Domingo de la Calzada, 1532. London, 1837. Boston, 2019. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild, and all of them grow teeth. That's all we know. And finally, a Korean novel that comes out just days after this video goes up is Yeonam Dong's Smiley Laundromat. This is written by Kim Ji-yoon and translated into English by Shana Tan. Yeonam Dong's Smiley Laundromat is a place where the extraordinary stories of ordinary people unfold. Situated at the heart of a rapidly gentrifying district of Seoul, the laundromat is a haven of peace and reflection for many locals. And when a notebook is left behind there, it becomes a place that brings people together. One by one, customers start jotting down candid diary entries, opening their hearts and inviting acts of kindness from neighbors who were once just faces in the crowd. But there is a darker story behind the notebook, and before long the laundromat's regulars are teaming up to solve the mystery and put the world to rights. Instantly capturing the hearts of readers around the world, this is a novel about the preciousness of human relationships and the power of solidarity in a world that is increasingly cold, fast-paced, and virtual. This sounds like a novel that we need right now, and I'm so glad that it exists. There you go, those are the 21 books that I'm very, very excited about in 2025. Let me know what books you're excited about in the comments, tell me books that I have missed so I can get even more excited about more books, and subscribe for books.